Next thing you're going to see and hear is Anita, dating counselor.
I am doing good. I just came back. I was racing to get back from the bank. So I was like, I got to deposit some money in the bank. So let me run and do that real quick. But yeah, I'm doing good. It's hot and humid here. Where are you all located?
Washington, D.C.
Okay, that's where I'm from. I'm down here in Richmond.
Okay.
Been here 22 years, but yeah, I'm originally born and raised in Washington, D.C. Yep.
Yes, ma'am. So I want to start this episode just asking you, how did you get into couples therapy, dating, coaching? Why is it so important to you? The purpose of it, in your mind frame.
So I started my career as a school teacher many years ago, and then met my husband when he was in medical school. And one of the things that we agreed upon was if we came together and got married, that I would stay at home, and I wanted to do that. That I would stay at home, be a stay-at-home wife and mother. So I did that for 12 years, and then I attempted to go back to teaching once my kids were in middle school, and it wasn't as fun as I remembered. And so I thought back many years ago when I was 9, my grandmother prophesied over me. And she told me the two things that, well, she told me the three things that I would be in this life. The first thing she told me is that I would be a mother. She said, you're going to be a mother. You have that spirit. You're going to nurture your children and your husband. You're going to be a mother. The second thing she told me was I would be a teacher. And I went into teaching because I love children. So that, of course, came true. But the third thing she told me was that I would be a counselor. So I didn't realize it all the way back then, or even, when I was a teacher, that I would ever have a second career. But I remembered that. I said, okay, well, she also said that I would be a counselor. So let me go back to school and get a master's in professional counseling and become a counselor. And I love this work. I had no idea I could love my career as much as I love teaching, because I love teaching. I love kids still to this day. Did Sunday school teaching at church for 16 years. Like, I love teaching, but I love counseling people. I had no idea. So she saw something in me that I didn't see. Um, I niched down and became a couples therapist 2 years ago, because prior to that, I was seeing individuals and couples, but there's something about couples therapy that I just love. I cannot get enough of. One of the things that I tell my therapy clients is that in my mind, it's an extension of working with children. So, because I love children so much and because I'm so passionate about children, I said, what's another way I could help children without going back to teaching or directly working with children? And it is couples therapy. When I help a husband and wife, when I help mom and dad have a better relationship, I improve their children's lives exponentially. So that is one of the main reasons why I love couples therapy.
So when I first came in contact with you, you had some content and it was trending.
Right.
Yeah, it was trending heavy on Shade Room. So I did in turn took that information and brought it to my podcast. And I specifically did it as like a one thing me and my wife try to do is like laughter is so important to us.
Oh, yeah.
I also know my wife struggles with this thing called accountability. What that content was about. So when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I got one on her. So I brought it to the podcast, and that's how I came in contact with you. And then we ran into the Diddy trial.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that came out of the Diddy trial that we knew were harmful. That you shouldn't expect a man to treat a woman that way. But then there were things like that I didn't have the mental terminology myself, and I didn't want to. I feel like this topic doesn't shouldn't take a bunch of jokes because at the end of the day, there were women that were harmed. But then there were details of this trial that was confusing to me coming from a black man, and I personally think too many times as black men we use the excuse of our past as far as our upbringing to justify why we should do some of the things that you're doing as an adult. But I wanted to know what the terminology was for that, so that's why I reached out to, because some of this stuff is like it's a little crazy to hear coming from somebody like that. Even though I understand just because a person presents themselves one way in the public doesn't necessarily mean they're the same way when they're not, in the public. So that's why I reached out to you. But then I got on your YouTube doing my homework, and that's all I can say is wow, cause you're not cookie cutter. Like
And I'm a
before you go to it,
yep.
we get into the notes I took because I took some notes. I wanna understand what was your thinking behind the stuff that you may not have paid full attention to it, but what are some of the things that you thought about when you kind of got details from it?
From the trial.
Yes.
Um, One of the things that I believe is, especially in our community, what is the most dangerous thing in our community is our unchecked trauma, is our unchecked um, childhood wounds and our trauma, our attachment. So I work with adults on their attachment theory, but that's really what's doing us in. And a lot of us need to do that work. We need a coach or a counselor or some sort of mentor, someone whose life, I always tell people, look for someone whose life you envy. That's the person that you should work with. And we especially need to do that work because we have a lot of generational things that Black people have been known to do. We have a lot of wounds, we have a lot of traumatic things that happen to us, but if it goes unchecked, that becomes the new normal. Like this is just, yeah, this is normal. This is how we do it. And, Sean Combs, I'm not sure. I know he was raised by a single Black mother. And if I can, I'm gonna make some, intellectual guesses. I think that he was her husband, right? In a weird sick way. There was no truly holding him accountable or teaching him right from wrong. I think they have this husband wife relationship instead of a mother son relationship. I think it's a really twisted relationship, and thereby he feels there's no accountability there. So he didn't have a mom trying to pass down good values, good morals. They had this husband wife type thing going on. Um, and he spoke about how he wanted to be rich, be famous, take care of his mom, give her everything in the world she's ever wanted. And that's kind of the relationship that they've had. They don't have a healthy mother son relationship. So I don't know what's happened to him in his childhood. Something could have happened, right? Something could have happened to him in his childhood. We don't know. But I know the relationship with his mom is not healthy. And so, and I married a man similar. I married a man who had the mommy issues, and she just they have a weird, wife husband dynamic. I was like, yeah, this is crazy. So it's familiar to me. That dynamic is very familiar to me, where the mom is like the wife or wants to be seen as the wife, and the son is like her husband. So that's the dynamic that Diddy has with his mother.
Wow, and what's so crazy? No one is talk. No one focuses on that part.
Yeah.
You hear is folks paying attention to the baby oil and
He's got some childhood stuff. He's got some childhood stuff, but like I said, he's like a lot of people in our community. They want to be rich and famous and they want to get out of the ghetto and they want to give their parents everything. Um, but again, there's character is king. I always tell people this character is king, and things like money are going to reveal your character. Things like money are going to reveal your lack of values and morals. So, all of his money only revealed his lack of character.
Wow.
It is true because I was looking into like information like how his relationship is with his mom, and they were going into
Hmm.
detail about certain things and how she was just trying to groom him to be the hustler and
Yep.
like how his father was. It's
Hmm.
just that the hustle was to be a legitimate hustle and not an
Right.
illegal hustle like the father. He was doing illegal business.
Yeah.
Um, but it is more of a even in detail of like learning how he was learning how to love a woman or kiss a woman. He French kissed his mother.
Yeah.
Like she taught him to like what?
Yeah.
And then when you see like some of the people comments like, "Oh yeah, I learned that. That is weird. That is like you don't." But when you said about, and that's like one of my notes is the trauma bond
Yeah.
situation. It's like how do someone who is that has that trauma how do because you had a clip that you reposted on your page about a guy he was talking about how you have to reparent yourself.
Yep.
And it's like, how can somebody reparent themselves who doesn't know what love is or who doesn't know how to be a good role model? Like what they're doing, they think is actually a good thing. So how does somebody in that dynamic be a good role model or a parent or to a child? And it just and then when I after I saw that and you were putting the clip out where you was talking about how us as women can prevent ourselves from being a single mom or an unfit mom by not being one if you are not ready for that. Like there's so many avenues, but you have
Can I
people who
stop you real
feel
quick?
Hmm.
Girl, I'm so proud of you, girl.
what?
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I love that. I'm
Because I
sorry.
did
Keep
my
going. I'm
homework.
sorry.
Okay.
I did
Yeah.
homework.
All right.
But you know how there are so many things out here for women to be able to prevent unwanted pregnancies and things of the
Yeah.
nature, because there is no such thing as having a child is going to keep the opposite person. Like
Mm-mm.
that's just not what it is. At the end of the day, when you decide that you're going to be the person that's going to the mother that's your responsibility. Whether that
Hmm.
person is there or not, you're going to be held responsible because that is a soul tie that you have. But I never knew because I never saw myself as being a mom. And once I became a mom, I became a completely different person.
Right.
Like, I still have my temper, but it's not as bad because I'm like, I
Hmm.
got kids, can't go to jail, so I won't smack you. So I'll just, certain case. But the biggest, I guess the biggest question struggle is once I had my child, it was like, okay, this little person, I have to be a better person for this little person. But I
Right.
know people who have kids that did not get that like, I have a child, I need to be a better person, or I had a child and I need to focus on my child. Like, I need to, my life that I was doing, I need to now factor it in with this person, with this little person. So I need to slow up. Like, if you were working two and three jobs and now you're pregnant and now you had this child, you can't do those two and three jobs because now you're leaving it for somebody else to have to raise your child. So what kind of
Right.
respect and morals will your child have for you once they get to a certain age? And if you have trauma, you're passing down that trauma. So when does that cycle end?
Yeah. And so it's interesting that there are two responses, right? Sometimes it's interesting to me, and I've always wondered what determines which way the person's going to go. But there's two responses. The first response is to normalize the trauma and to just pass it down to your children. Hey, I didn't get emotional attunement. I'm not going to emotionally attune to you. So that's one way. Or we can say, hey, I need to do something different. I didn't get emotional attunement. I'm definitely going to give it to you. Yeah, I find that fascinating that people will take those two routes. And what I want to understand is what determines like which route you go. I find that personally fascinating because I too always wanted to be the best. I'm obsessed with personal growth, period. but I've always wanted to be the best version of myself. And having children sent me down this second road. I'm going to give you what I wished I had gotten. I'm going to show up the way I wished my parents had shown up. See, I went this way, but some people go this way. Well, I didn't get no emotional attunement. You ain't getting none. Or I didn't get this. You ain't getting none. Some people go that way. I think that's fascinating, and I'm trying in research and talking to people in my office, like what determines which way people go? I find that fascinating.
And I
But
found
the,
it interesting when you
mhm,
said that someone who has trauma issues and needs counseling, they need to find and talk to somebody that they envy. But I realized, a lot of people, they are very prideful. So they
right.
wouldn't, it's
Yeah.
like, I want to find somebody that I can relate to. And that makes kind of, now you say that makes no sense, because how are you going to build
Right.
better if you're going to somebody that you can relate to, because they're going to make it seem
Yep.
like your bad
Same
behavior
thing.
is a good behavior.
Yep. Yep. You've got to find someone, and you're right. So pride is a dangerous thing because it'll keep us from growing. Pride will keep us from apologizing. Pride will keep us from seeing our part in situations, right? That's why I also recommend, so reparenting is the first thing every human being on the planet needs to do. Reparenting. That's the first order of business. I work with people as young as 21. I don't work with like 18, 19, 20, but 21. That's the first thing we do in individual counseling is we work on reparenting. And right behind that, we have to work on ego. We have to work on tamping down the ego,
Mm.
right? Because and especially in marriage, I especially have to do this work with couples because I keep telling the husband and the wife, "Hey, your ego doesn't give a damn about your love. Your ego doesn't care about your connection. It will blow up your whole marriage, and then when you come to, you're like, what happened? Why am I divorced?" Like, and it's your ego. So check your ego, right? I always tell people I want the closeness, I want the connection, and that's what I keep in mind when I'm speaking with my significant other. It's not about being right, it's not about being first, it's not about having the last word. It's about how do I say this in a way so as to maintain the closeness and connection.
Anita, stop
I'm not.
talking to me. She talking about me.
Okay, so remember that
Talking about me.
closeness, the connection. That's my priority,
He just
right? Now,
smiling on the inside.
but you got to do the ego work, right? And I always tell people, so when we think about even the Trinity, I'm a believer, so I relate it to the Trinity, and it's the same with humans. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we have our flesh. So the ego is the flesh man. That is the physical person that you see, but it's carnal, right? It wants to eat donuts for breakfast, and it wants to have sex with people that it shouldn't. It wants to use drugs. It wants to drink alcohol all the time. That's the fleshly man. But I want people to connect to their spirit, right? And the way you got to do that is tamp down that flesh. You got to tamp down that ego. What would my higher self say in this moment? And this is what's funny. It feels so good. Like when I teach people this ego work, because I always tell people I don't match negative energy. I don't. Like positive energy, hey, vibes. Negative energy, I'm gone. Right? That's how I
So,
avoid the narcissistic people in my life. They don't get any energy.
so I'm a believer in getting my lick back.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't have to be like right now in the moment type thing,
Yeah.
but eventually I'm a person about getting my lick back. So,
Yeah. But I want you to work on that because at the end of the day, like when people say, I'm petty and all of that, I'm like,
mhm.
okay, but I'm gonna show you that not being that way and letting nature take its course, letting, God or karma, whatever you believe in, like let that do its work, right? Let that do its work and you're free, you're clean of it. Because this is what I find, people who are vengeful, it's like in the process of that person getting their karma, you're attached to it now. So the chances are high that something is also going to happen to you. I walk away. I walk away. I cut it off. I'm clean. I'm free of it. And when that person gets their comeuppance, I'm nowhere near it. That's what I want people to do.
While we on the subject of walking away, right? How do you find how do you find that balance though to be able to consume so much of people's trauma while trying to also navigate your own personal life outside of listening to the trauma? Because you know people come to you for advice, right? And it's like I'm giving you all the tools to operate in the most fulfillment way you possibly can for yourself, but they never truly follow the directions, so they keep finding themselves in the same predicament. So how do you deal with that and trying to be the best aid for them that you possibly can while still having to try to live your life as well?
Well, one of the things I think my grandmother saw in me, which is why she told me I would be a counselor, is I have the gift of compartmentalization. And that is a very rare gift for a woman. Men are great at it. Men are
Yeah,
great at compartmentalizing. So they have all these different boxes and different things live in different boxes. Women are not typically like that. We have one big box and everything lives in the one big box. And so, I compartmentalize. What happens at work stays at work, and then as soon as I leave, it's clean out of my mind. I also set limits, though. This is something that people were surprised to hear. I set limits. I set time limits with working with individuals and couples. So I am what's called a solution focused brief therapist. Excuse me, a solution focused brief therapist. That means that I normally don't work with people longer than a year. So if we have been seeing each other consistently for 1 year, 12 months, and nothing has changed, you're not better, your marriage is not better, I now take you through the termination process. I refer you to another therapist, I refer you to someone else if you want to continue. And that's a really hard conversation, but I have it every day. Every day I say, well, we've reached an impasse. And they say, what do you mean? We've worked together for about a year and I don't see any growth. I don't see any change. So either one of two things is true. I am not as effective as I thought I was. Okay. So I own that. Maybe I'm not effective. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Or you're not ready to make the changes that need to be made for you to see progress. Either way, I'm going to take you through the termination process and I'm going to refer you to three other therapists if you'd like to keep going. But I don't wear myself out with people's problems year after year after year. I don't. I don't get anything out of, showing up for therapy. I can't care more than them. That's another thing that I say that shocks people, but I say, hey, I can't care more than you. If this is the life you want, is if this is what you want to keep doing, have at it. Just don't come back in here. And I do. I have good boundaries, and I'm proud of that. I model that to my clients what good boundaries look like. I say this is what good boundaries look like. But I don't wear myself out. I don't talk to people year after year after year that don't want to make changes, that don't want to grow. I don't get anything out of that. I don't think they get anything out of it. I don't need their money that bad. I cut them loose, but I want to work with people who are motivated. I want to work with people who want to grow. That to me feels great. And that is most of my clients. Most of my clients they want the pain to stop. They do want to get better. They do want to see things get better.
people don't respect this much honesty
They don't.
and this much aggressiveness.
Yeah, they don't.
And but I also think that's perfect though, and we need more therapists like that versus the ones who want to coddle you and you not improving and you just wasting the money. Like you said, you don't need that money that bad to just keep wasting their time and your time. Okay, so now let's get through these questions,
Mhm.
and I want to get you out of here. So this is the one I thought was crazy, not crazy, but funny to me. The
Okay.
most underrated relationship skill:
Mm.
knowing when to walk away. And my question to that is, when you say knowing when to walk away, because you basically saying, it's gonna come a time where you just gotta kick rocks because it just
Yeah,
ain't working out.
right.
But wouldn't that be considered quitting?
Well, again, a lot of us, if we suffer from codependency, if we suffer from a more anxious attachment style, we struggle, right? We struggle with that. We're like, yeah, I don't want to quit. I don't want to give up on this person. There are people we most certainly should give up on, most definitely. And I give you a guide as to what that looks like, right? Because my grandpa used to say, that's like throwing good money after bad. So if you have invested in a business and it has not turned a profit in 2 years, that third year, you need to make a decision. So you can have 3 years of no profit, 4 years of no profit, or you can cut your losses and you can move on to something else. But yes, that is the most people do not know when to walk away. And there is such a thing as what we call the sunken cost fallacy. And that's basically where a person says, but I've invested all this time and this energy and this money and my resources into this. And if I walk away, I won't see a return. That's a real thing. However, even the smartest business people, they know when to cut their losses. They know when to say, you know what? I'm not going to see a return here. So I'm going to move on.
All right, then you got another one. It's not popular to defend a man today. So my question is, so when you manifest trash, is it the thought process that you're gonna receive what you manifest? Because you talked about a lot about that in that clip too.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
can we dig into that a little bit?
So today's woman, unfortunately, um, some of the worst things that were ever created for a modern day society, things like social media, things like pornography, um, they have taught women specifically that they want to gain the eye, gain the attention. So it's all about the attention. It's not about intention, it's about attention. And those things say, I have to look a certain way, I have to put on a certain look, right? Because it's all about attention. Attention is the currency today. And so they're out here competing with each other and, doing all of this stuff to get the attention of a man. But what's interesting is they don't like men. Like they don't genuinely like men. They don't understand men. I think that's really interesting. So it's like men seeking female validation, women seek male validation because they really don't like men like that. Right. And I've even said on my videos, yeah, overall, men are gross. Men are gross. I was raised by men, so I can say that. However, I have a reverence for men. I have a respect for them in the sense of they're not like women, but there are so many wonderful things about men. Like I have a deep reverence for men that most women don't. They don't like them. They don't understand them.
That is true. And I also think that's more prevalent now in this generation. You know,
Here's the bad news. So men feel that energy, right? Because I'm always telling women, men are energetic beings just like us. They can feel your energy before you even get close. They can feel the energy coming off of you. And so men have responded in kind by, I don't want to be bothered. I'm not pursuing women anymore. I'm not engaging with women anymore. And that to me is instead of stepping up and leading the situation, so are now reacting. They're now reacting to this, low vibrational energy or women not liking them. I think that's unfortunate, but I understand it. I understand why they're responding that way because energetically they can feel that women don't like them. So,
So when you said that, it's like, so people will just drawn to the opposite sex because it's like that's what you're supposed to do versus
I,
actually doing the work to figure out what works and how it works for you to actually be a better person than because that's more trauma.
right. But it's to me, it's God designed. right? That's why men will never leave women alone and women will never leave men alone. It's God designed.
Or I don't know how, like, my upbringing
Hmm.
is, it's like a, I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I feel like I would be, if my parents would have did more of a nurturing and I guess not so much of spoiling and just whatever, I would probably be a more humble person than I am.
Hmm.
I will probably have more respect and thought of what the things that I did, especially when I was younger. So
Hmm.
now that I'm an adult and have kids, it's like, wow, I wasn't a good kid, but I did not get reprimanded for those things.
Mm.
So it's like not being reprimanded for those things, growing up as an adult, and still doing things that I felt because nobody reprimanded me for it or told me that's not the right thing to do, to continue to do those things. And then I get in a relationship with a guy who has family trauma, and he's the most humble person I know. Like, I could be
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. He'd be like, it's fine. It'll be okay. You know, we're going to pray about it. We're going to figure this out. It's going to be fine. And I was just like, what? Like, no, this. And it's just like, how? Because I don't know if I would have been able as a child to go through the things that he went through as a child. Like, I was that child that I knew, like, bills, things like that. I ain't know nothing about none of that. If I asked for something, I got it.
Hmm.
There was no, you gotta wait, anytime like that. So it's like, to hear people, and I'm bringing up our kids and, showing the kids of to not know what a struggle is, and different things of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but as an adult, I know I could be a better person if I actually work on the ego things when it comes to certain things. But I also
Right.
feel like I probably have gotten to the point, like, when it comes to friendships and stuff, it's okay to outgrow a friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of us will. A lot of us will. But the reparenting process, so it starts from the time you're 18. Most people don't really understand it until they're in their 20s. But your parents, their job as parents is from birth to 18. That's what the society says, that at 18 years old, you're a legal adult. That means that your parents' job is done. Okay, so now it's on you to now sit down and assess, what did they give me? What didn't they give me? What do I wish were different? What type of mother do I wish I had? What type of father do I wish I had? And then you've got to grieve that, especially if you didn't get the mom or dad that you wanted, if you didn't have the childhood that you wanted. You have to grieve that loss. You have to say, man, that sucked. I got gypped. Grieve it. Black people suck at grieving.
Hmm.
We are very horrible at grieving things. We will get angry before we will grieve, when really what we need to do is grieve. We need to deeply grieve the life we wish we had or the childhood we wish we had. That can take months. Then, once we have grieved that loss, we say, okay, I'm the parent now. I still have an inner child. I still have an inner girl or an inner boy within me. How can I give that inner girl or boy what it always wanted, what it needs? And that means you have to check in every day with your inner child. So how are you feeling today? What's something that we can do to make you feel good? Right? I do that every single day. I check in with my inner girl and I say, "Hey, what's something that I can do today to make you feel good?" Sometimes she says, well, I want to ride my bike. I want to take the dog to the dog park. I want to work in the garden, right? I want to read. I want to paint. I want to draw. I want to do something creative. I want to have a hot fudge sundae. There's all types of things that my inner girl needs to feel good, to feel loved, right? So the first thing is the emotional attunement. Pay attention to your inner child. And a lot of us don't do that. We say, oh, well, I didn't get the childhood I wanted. That sucks. And then we move into being an adult. But the truth is, most of us are still very much a child. And that's why we're not very good adults. right? We have to honor that inner child. So I do that every single day, and I encourage other people to do that. But we're also going to move into adulthood, and that's going to look like, okay, what are my values? What are my morals? What are the things that I want to be known for in this world? What type of person do I want to be? And we're growing in that. We're growing in that every single day. And how do we do that? We say, okay, I want to be an upstanding person. I want to be an honest person. So that means I have to be truthful. I have to be honest. And that's something I'm going to practice. That's how you know it's my value, because I do it over and over again. I want to be a person who loves God. I want to be obedient. Now I got to walk that out every single day. For me, I am a person who is very active. I'm very fit. I walk that out every single day. So most people, they know me for that. Anita's going to walk 2 miles. She's going to work out. She's going to ride her bike. She's going to do all these things because I see myself as a fit and healthy person, right? That is the embodiment of our values. So when you see a person say, "Oh, I love God. I'm a religious person, or I'm a faith-filled person," and they're doing the opposite, no you don't. No you don't. That's something that you say. That's why I always tell people, look at what people do, look at their patterns. That's who they really are. But that reparenting journey, every person has to go through it. And guess what? Most people don't. Most people don't. They spend their adult life blaming their parents, blaming the past, saying, "Oh, if I had gotten this, if I hadn't gotten that, if this hadn't happened, or if that hadn't happened." No, baby, it's done. It's done. I protect my inner girl. That's why I'm not around a lot of foolishness, because I think to myself, in this situation, if my 9-year-old self was standing right here, oh no, oh no, we ain't having that. All right. I protect my 9-year-old little girl. I make sure that nobody is mistreating her. Nobody's talking crazy. Nobody's doing anything to her. That's how you have to see it. Just like you protect your earthly children, you have to protect your inner child the same way. And see, people don't do that. Do you know that people will experience childhood trauma, and instead of growing up and protecting themselves, they'll put themselves in harm's way over and over. And I'm thinking, wow, that's wild that you will have been touched as a child and now you out here sleeping around. Like you're still not even protecting yourself and your inner child. That's crazy to me. But that's how the brain works. The brain on trauma is crazy. It will send you down that same path. Like, yeah, you don't have no worth and value. Go ahead and give it away. You're already dirty, you're already used. That's crazy. But my job is to rewire that. I have to rewire those type of lessons that you learned as a child to say, nope, I ain't having it now. I'm not giving it to just anybody. I'm not just laying. No, I had that happen to me as a kid. No more. I protect my inner child now. So that's what we don't do enough of that. We don't get in touch with that inner child every single day. We don't talk to it, ask it what it needs. We don't love on it. We don't talk to ourselves in a loving way. We don't become the loving parent that we needed. Most of us don't do that. And then like I said, we need to radically forgive our parents. We need to let them off the hook. So that's the first thing I did. I canceled the debt to my parents. I was like, you know what? We done. You don't owe me anything. It's on me now. I got it. And I did change the relationship I have with my parents. I started to see them as a man and a woman. They're just a man and a woman. They're just a valuable human being. They're just doing the best they can with what they know. Once I did that, everything changed. Everything changed. I no longer held them like, "Oh, you owe me. You owe me. You didn't do this, you didn't do that." We're done. We're done. I unhooked them from me. I treat them with respect. They treat me with respect. But to me, they're just a man and a woman doing the best they could with what they had. And we had to reshape that relationship. And a lot of people don't do that. I have friends my age that when they get around their parents, they act like they're 10 years old. And that's weird to me. Like, what's happening right now? You grown. Why are you acting like this? And they never, again, they never reparented. but they also never like stepped into that adult role with their parents to say, no, I'm a grown man now. I've been married, I've had children, I got a mortgage. Like you and me are the same. We all need to do that. They get infantilized by their parents. Like I'm still a little kid. I'm still a little kid. No, you're not. No, you're
Hmm.
not. People hear me talk to my mom and dad, and they're like, "That's your dad?" I was like, "Yeah, he's just a dude. He's just a guy. He's just," and it's respectful, but it's not like a subordinate talking to a boss. I don't talk to my parents like that. I talk just like you and I are talking. Hey, dad, what's up? Are you coming down? Or what are you doing? Are you heading back out? Are you going out overseas? Blah blah blah. I just have normal conversations. But other people, it's either they don't really say what they mean, or they talk like little kids, and I'm like, what is happening? You're not a little kid. You're a grown up. Like, be respectful. I'm respectful to my parents, but I talk like a grown up. Yeah, I'm a grown up. They're a grown up. But that reparenting process, we actually, so I released a video on YouTube about reparenting, and we are actually working on reparenting in the private community that I have. That's the video I have to shoot after this. It's all about reparenting. So that's what we're going to start working on, because a lot of people need to do that. They need to set themselves free. They need to forgive their parents. I wrote both of my parents a letter, forgave them. Our relationship started as adults, and it's been great. It's been great ever since. So I really strongly encourage that people do that.
Yeah, that's something I don't struggle with when it comes to my mother. I
Hmm.
have to constantly remind her that I'm married,
Yep.
I got kids.
Hmm.
A certain way, our relationship shouldn't be this way, and that's kind of why we butt heads. But to move on, and look, I appreciate you for the time you've given us, and
Yeah.
we've learned so much. Honestly, I didn't expect this interview to turn into a semi therapy session for us.
Right.
Even though I'm not gonna say we're the best, but I feel like we're in a good
We're good.
space.
Good.
But I just want to end with this. And you said the real reason why most men marry or commit, and you referenced this and said, ladies, don't get mad. You said men want stable sex. Get
Yeah,
into
pretty
that.
much. Yeah, pretty much. And depending on where they are in their life is going to determine who they choose to get it from. So,
Yeah,
yeah, like that is a driving force inside of men, is that desire to procreate, that desire to, pitch his flag, plant his seed, or whatever you want to call it. And it's always fascinated me, right? It's this thing about men, it fascinates me because it has destroyed powerful men. Like I want to experience that just for a day. Like what is it inside of you all? It's almost like a beast that you can't even fully control. I just would like to experience it for a day because I don't fully understand it, but it's like all logic and reasoning goes out the window when it comes to sex for men. And I just want to understand that. So that's why I have so much respect for men who are sexually disciplined, because it is like they have tamed this beast inside of them. I'm fascinated by that. But yeah, that's what it is. They want steady, stable sexual fulfillment. Sexual fulfillment is very high on a man's list of needs. It's one of his top three needs. And yeah, we think it's about love, and we think it's about, I do it for him, as far as love and all of that. No, it's like, I want to, and that's why men are so territorial, right? Most men are never going to share their woman. I would say 98% of them. They are never going to share their woman with another man. They're not interested in that. They're like, this is mine. Only I am here. Like that's really what it's about. But we romanticize it. We think it's about love and all this other stuff. Nope. No, this is mine. this, this is my supply. Ain't nobody else over here in my supply. And it is what it is. So that's why I tell women sexual fulfillment is important. And so I want you to stay on your man about meeting your emotional needs so you can meet his sexual needs. right? So I stay on, hey, we need to talk, we need to touch each other non-sexually, we need to laugh, we need to have fun. That's what makes me want to continue to have sex with you. But if you ignore me and then at the end of the week you come and want sex, I'm going to be less likely to want to give it. So I am the guardian of the relationship. This is what I tell every woman. She is the guardian of the relationship. She is going to make sure that emotionally you all are good because now she can perform sexually.
I got one more,
Okay.
and you kind of led me into it.
Okay.
And, healthy relationships are built, not found.
Right.
And you went right. You also spoke about just now about dealing with someone who experienced relationship trauma.
Hmm.
And for a few minutes, and now I promise you this is it.
Okay.
Can you talk about that?
So when I enter a relationship, so right now I'm not in a relationship, but when I enter a relationship, the first thing that or if I'm dating, yeah, right, I'm seeing if this person would be a good fit for marriage because that's the only reason why I would date. Right now I'm not dating. But when I was and I was like, "Hey, let me see if this person's a good fit for marriage." The first question I ask is about co-creating the relationship. And I ask the man, "What does that mean to you?" when I say co-creating the relationship. And then he'll give me his answer and then I'll give him my answer. So that's like you and I, we want to build the house of our dreams. We're going to come together. We're going to work with an architect or someone who's going to design the home. You're going to tell him what you want. I'm going to tell him what I want. And together, we're going to design the home. Then we're going to hire builders, and we're also going to be a part of building the home. So together, we're going to show up at the job site and we're going to put in the same amount of time, but every day we are going to work on building our perfect home. And then when the home is done and it's completed and it's passed all the inspections, you and I are going to move into the home together. And together, we're going to maintain the home. That is what co creating a relationship is, but it takes the both of us. So let's say only I show up to the design process and you don't show up that day. And so I put everything I want in it, but you're like, oh, I don't have my man cave. I don't have my billiard room. I don't have my game room. Okay, you didn't show up. That was the day we were supposed to tell the architect what we wanted. And then come time for us to actually build it. So I show up at 8, I'm done at 5, but you show up at noon, you're done at 3. And now it's taking longer and longer for the house to get built. And I'm like, hey, we had a 6-month time frame and we're at 9 months. What's going on? Like, you're not showing up for a full day. You're not bringing your tools. You're sitting around. Like, come on. If we want to get this house done, we both got to show up from 8 to 5. We both got to bring all our tools. That's what most people don't realize. And you have one person that isn't doing their part, or one person that isn't showing up for the design phase. So they're not getting what they want. No, relationships are created. And we both have to see that as important, especially if we want one that's just amazing. I have couple friends who have 30-year marriages, 35-year marriages, and their marriage is amazing. But when I tell you they show up, like both of them show up and they get the thing done, and it's a sight to see. But most people don't do that. They think, oh, I'm going to find this person and it's going to be easy. I'm really not going to have to do anything and they're just going to be perfect for me. That is not how it works. And nothing else in our life is like that. That's what's so interesting. Everything else in our life requires effort, but yet we think that the magic of love, no, no, I had to be in school. I have 3 degrees. So I have to be in school. I have to write papers. I have to take tests. Like nothing else in my life happened like that. Why would I think relationships would? So yeah, we got to grow up when it comes to that. I teach my adult children that. I do. I've taught my adult children, look, relationships take 3 things: time, energy, and effort. Time, energy, and effort. If you don't have that, you ain't going to have nothing. And it is not a fairy tale. It is not magic. It's not, ooh, I met the right person. No, I do believe in the best fit, but you're still going to have to put time, energy, and effort, right? Even for the best man for me, I can't just slack off. I can't, gain a bunch of weight. I can't not do my hair. I can't walk around looking a mess, right? And this is God's man. This is God's design man for me. If I don't show up, he's gonna be like, "Look, this ain't working for me," and I only have myself to blame. So yeah, everybody has to do their part. Same for the dudes. You can't stop doing the things you did to get her and think that you're gonna keep her, right? Men get complacent. Women get complacent too, but they get complacent. They're like, "Yeah, I got her. Okay." And then they do nothing. No, come on, man. And again, you can't do that anywhere else. You can't stop putting in effort at the job at 3 months. Yeah, I've been here 3 months. I'm good. No, you better show up and work. So why do we think the relationship is any different? I've always found again that fascinating. Why are people like that?
And when you put it that way, it's like a business proposition.
But to some extent, like I said, love is a beautiful thing, but we have romanticized marriage too much, right? We really have in our society. Marriage is a covenant, but it's also a contract. It is a contract. It is about meeting needs. It's about meeting the needs of the other person. And we can't forget that. This is one of the most controversial things that I have said. People still hate it to this day. Love is conditional. Okay? Relationship is conditional. If I marry a man and he doesn't remain faithful, the relationship is over. So why are we acting like, oh, I can just do anything? I can just be with this person and show up any kind of way and think that relationship's going to continue. It ain't. But see, only adults think like that. Little kids say, I want unconditional love. I want to be able to do anything and have anything happen, and you're going to still stick around. You're going to still love me. Only little kids think that way, right? And here's where we get it from. When we were all born, if we were born to relatively good parents, those parents met every need we had. So we got it burned into our reptilian brain that that's how I should be forever. That, yeah, these people did everything. They fed me and clothed me and did this and did that and educated me. And so when I get with a man or a woman, they should become an extension of my parents.
No,
Nah, baby. Don't worry. I'm not your mother. I'm the first person to tell you that. I ain't mama. I ain't mama. You want unconditional love? You should have got that from your mom. And then if she didn't give it to you, now you have to reparent. Because I'm not mama. I have conditions, baby. I have conditions. Okay, so you can't cheat and lie and do me any kind of way and think I'm gonna stick around. That ain't gonna happen. So, but only adults understand that concept, and most people are still very much, it's that arrested development. They're still a kid, and they do believe. I had a man come into the comments of my video. Why didn't you talk about women nurturing their husbands? Because women don't nurture grown men. Women nurture babies, they nurture plants, and they nurture animals. It is in God's design for women to nurture things that can't take care of itself. I support my man. I respect my man. I am his helpmeet. I give my man a lot, but I do not nurture or baby him. That was for his mother. And if his mother didn't do it, now he has to reparent. Okay, that's getting into this twisted dynamic of my wife is my mommy. No, I don't want to be your mommy. I want to be your lover. I want to be your friend. I want to be your business partner. I want to be your co parent, but I'm not your mother. But men push back on that. But a lot of these men didn't have good mothers. That's why. All the men I know who had great moms, they're like, yeah, of course Anita isn't my mother. Like, of course she ain't nurturing me. That's crazy. Like, they get it because they had a great relationship with their mom. See, they got nurturing from mom, so they don't need it from me. But men who did not, those are the men they want to die on that hill. You should be nurturing me. You should be doing me like the kids. No, baby, no. Time to grow up. Time to grow up. You're a grown man. You're a grown man. I can't nurture you.
This has been a good episode. And I swear, when we got more time, there has to be a part two because I got
Okay.
many more questions. But look, I really, truly, 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 truly appreciate you for agreeing to do this episode and this.
Of course.
From the bottom of my heart, I really do. I really do appreciate it, and we thank you for joining behind the podcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.